1, 2, 3, 4.
Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make me chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make me chant down Vatican now. Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make me chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make me chant down Vatican now.
What up, y'all? Babylon 5 Podcast. It's your boy, Jermaine Event. Yeah, that sounds great. I started to record this a second ago, and I was just like, dude, something sounds crazy. My voice sounds weird. And I was like, oh, shit. I didn't do all the bells and the whistles with my vocal chain. So I was like, damn, let me just start this whole thing over. I mean, I could have did it post-production, but it sounded weird. Background noises weren't being canceled out as much. You know what I'm saying? I felt naked, ladies and gentlemen. Felt naked. This is episode 110 of the Babylon 5 podcast, and we're calling this bad boy No Mas. If you don't know, that is a reference to the boxer Roberto Duran, who I think it was probably like, damn, I forget who was boxing. Fuck. I should have looked that up. Roberto Duran, I want to say Shane. It can't be Sugar Shane. It can't be Sugar Shane. Sugar Ray. Sugar Ray. He was fighting Sugar Ray. That's what it was. Sugar Ray was giving it to him, and he was like, no mas. No mas, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what episode 10 is in reference, episode 110, ladies and gentlemen, is in reference to. It's the name, No Mas. A lot of things going on in the combat sports world this week, ladies and gentlemen. First, we're going to talk about Anthony Joshua. All right. I've been saying probably for last 4 or 5 years or so that Tyson Fury was the best boxer alive. And people laughed at me. This is before he beat the shit out of Deontay Wilder. And then he beat the shit out of Deontay Wilder. And still some motherfuckers were saying that Anthony Joshua could beat Tyson Fury. Even after Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz. And when I'm watching the Anthony Joshua fight this weekend, Roy Jones Jr. was saying how, like, I didn't like Anthony in the first Ruiz fight, and I didn't like Anthony Joshua in the second Ruiz fight. I thought he looked real, just too patient. Even in the second fight, but Ruiz was just like a step behind in the second fight. He just didn't get going into the later rounds. He was in worse shape than the first fight. And Anthony Joshua was just a little bit on that night, but I didn't like the way he looked. And I'm like, you guys are telling me this guy beats Fury just because they're both super tall? That's what you're telling me? It was a race pretty much between Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, and Deontay Wilder, a three-headed monster of who's the best heavyweight alive. And I've been telling y'all fools for so long, like 4-5 years, as I said, that Tyson Fury is the best boxer. That dude's gigantic. He's strong as who knows, you know what I'm saying? He's so strong. He's gigantic. He's Andre the Giant out there. And he's super skilled. Who can beat that? Nobody. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking nobody's going to beat him. He's gigantic and he's super skilled. He's coming at you fast hands. He's throwing 3-4 punches at a time, maybe more. He was all over Deontay Wilder that last fight. And when he got hurt against Otto Wallin, you know what he did? He came back strong. He got hurt, he got cut, and it was like, oh shit, they could stop this fight. Then he started putting it on Otto Whalen. Stop playing around. He was playing before that. But I digress, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Joshua defended his belt unsuccessfully in a mandatory title defense against Oleksander Usyk, a man who was the cruiserweight champion and moved up in weight. There was a pretty big size difference between the two, and right from the gate, man, Usyk was just catching Joshua with this jab. He's just coming in, just catching, just snapping that head back from round one. He was all over Joshua. All over Joshua. And then in the final rounds, man, I say definitely round 12, Usyk was just all over him. He's going for the knockout. He was already up rounds, but at this point, so it was like, damn, Joshua needs to finish this guy. But Usyk stepped it up and was all over Joshua. It was pretty beautiful. I will admit right now, I had no idea who Oleksander Usyk was before this fight. I was like, man, like until those last few rounds, like because it was like kind of back and forth, but Usyk was giving it to him. But then Usyk kind of put the stamp on it with the final 2 rounds. And I tweeted out that even if Usyk somehow loses this fight, if the judges give it to Joshua, that I still think that Usyk's a star after this fight. He's giving it to the guy they're saying could beat Tyson Fury, who I think is the best boxer alive. You know what I'm saying? And you can't say, oh, no, he's just big. Well, he's big and super talented. And if we discredit him for the size, do you discredit like Kevin Durant for being 7 foot fucking tall? Or Giannis for being 7 foot fucking tall? Do we discredit these players? No, we don't. So we don't discredit this. You know what I'm saying? We don't discredit Tyson Fury for being a giant. If that's the case, I mean, if it's like, oh, if Canelo's better, put him in the ring with Tyson Fury. Oh, it's not going to happen. Because Tyson Fury would whoop that ass. But I'm watching this fight, and in the middle of this fight with Oleksander, I'm watching it. I'm like, dude, Otto Whalen would probably finish Anthony Joshua. Because it was kind of back and forth in the first rounds. Like, Oleksander would take 2 rounds, then maybe Joshua would kind of take the next round or so. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of back and forth in that way at first, but then Usyk just stepped on the gas, man. But I'm looking at this like, dude, man, Joshua does not look good. Joshua, to me, looked like if they said fucking Triller announced that they were booking Anthony Joshua versus Evander Holyfield, I'd be like, that seems pretty fair. Today, after seeing Holyfield in that last fight, today, right now, after seeing Anthony Joshua box, I would be fine with them sanctioning Evander Holyfield versus Anthony Joshua. I think Holyfield is much safer in a fight against Anthony Joshua than he was in a fight against Vitor Belfort. That's how I feel about Anthony Joshua. All right? And he was just exposed, man. He just lost his belts for the second time to some relatively unknown, I would say. Did you guys know who Oleksander Usyk was? Maybe. Maybe you did. I'm not that deep in it. I know about certain. I know the big guys. You know what I'm saying? I try to watch the cards, but Jesus, I'm more of an MMA guy. I grew up a boxing guy, my first love, but I'm all MMA these days. I try to catch these fights. So I didn't know who Usyk was coming into this fight, but every day a star is born, and yesterday was Oleksander Usyk's day. So congratulations to the new heavyweight champion I think he won like 3 belts. Because I was just talking to my wife about this, like how silly it is. Like, with the whole debate of the 3-headed race between Deontay Wilder, Fury, and Joshua. There was only that 3-headed race because there's like a 15 fucking heavyweight belts split across the 3 of those fighters. And that's the only reason. And the only reason why these people just don't fight each other is because these niggas have mandatory fucking rematch clauses. So Tyson Fury has to fight Deontay Wilder again after he just beat that ass. And Anthony Joshua, when he lost his belt to Ruiz, had a rematch clause. So he wasn't the champion. So, like, you know, there was really no value in boxing him. But then he came back, got his belts with no rematch clause for whatever reason. Ruiz did not have a rematch clause. And now he just lost his belt to Usyk, and there is a mandatory rematch clause. So Usyk will defend his newly gained 3 heavyweight championship belts against Anthony Joshua. But Joshua's got to show me something brand new to think he has a chance against the fighter that I just saw yesterday. Oleksander Usyk looked great. All right? He looked phenomenal. Oh, you know what I think it is? I think I didn't delete the video from from last week, but I can delete it in a second here because I'm going to give you guys my social medias and then we're going to get into the next topic. How does that sound, ladies and gentlemen? All right? Cool? Yeah? Cool? But congratulations to Oleksander Usyk, but now I don't think we ever need to see Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua at this point. We already know who'd win that fight. And with the size difference of Oleksander Usyk and Tyson Fury, I don't think we need to see that fight. I'll watch it if you put it on. And if you put it on, I'll watch it. But I don't think we need to see that fight either. But we will because Fury wants them belts before he retires. So we're going to see it. And if you guys want to see me on Instagram and Twitter, if you want to see this podcast, it's at Babylon5Pod. If you want to follow my personal accounts, it's at My Name's Jermaine. You can email this podcast at Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You can follow this podcast at Babylon5.podbean.com. You can listen to this podcast via Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, pretty much anywhere podcasts stream, everywhere actually. Like I've seen it on some sites I've never even heard before. I've never even heard of these sites before. And I've seen it all over the place. So it's all over the place, you know. Anywhere podcast stream, you will find this podcast. If you guys are on Xbox, go ahead and add me. My gamer tag is SauceTheBoss414. If you guys are on Twitch, go ahead and add me at twitch.tv/Babylon5. If you guys want to rep the podcast, go ahead and get some merch. Go to teespring.com/stores/BOFpod-shop. And as I said, we brought down the tiers to just $1, ladies and gentlemen. Head to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod to be my patron. Be my patron. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, very interesting. Very interesting. The other day, Emily Zimmer, local artist here in Milwaukee, reached out to me. You know, she stumbled upon the podcast and saw that I was, you know, I talk about MMA, I talk about music, mainly Kanye. And I talk about music, you know what I'm saying? And Emily reached out. And Emily, who, congratulations to Emily, just got her black belt in Taekwondo, which is fucking amazing. As someone who has trained, you know what I'm saying, jiu-jitsu, and I know, like, how rigorous it is to, like, to get a black belt, to that test to become a black belt is just nutty. I I remember hearing about it as far as like jiu-jitsu is concerned, and it just blew my mind. It's like, dude, I would never, like, as I'm hearing it, it's like I would never achieve that. Like, get me up to blue belt maybe. Like, that was my mindset. Like, I was like, this sounds like a lot to just body movements and just like knowing to be here in this position and that, like, with the gi, it's just a lot. It's a lot. So congrats to Emily Zimmer. Emily Zimmer hit me up, and what I'm going to do here is play a song by Emily Zimmer. It's called... Shit, I'm tripping. I was just listening to it. It's called Little Pieces, ladies and gentlemen. Little Pieces. It's pretty vibey. Pretty friggin' vibey. I think it just debuted. Yeah, it just premiered on Radio Milwaukee 88.9. So you guys can listen to it on at radiomilwaukee.org/discover music. You guys will find Emily Zimmer on there. You find Emily Zimmer's music on SoundCloud. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this song real quick, and then we'll talk a little more about Emily. All right? Yeah.
In the same old silly places, and I wonder why I can't feel at home, even when I'm right here in my home. Stealing all the glances from the same old silly faces, and I wonder why I still feel alone, even with the world under my toes. For the same old gut reactions, maybe then the healing starts to unfold, or perhaps that notion's only for the bold. Dare I steal a breath? Can I be sound in consternation? 'Cause I still can't seem to find a way to go, even when I know all that I know. Something fills me with that aching sigh, but my will compels me every time I die. places, and I wonder why I can't feel at home, even when I'm right here in my home.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Little Pieces by Emily Zimmer. As I said, it premiered on 88.9. That's the first single off of the Emily Zimmer Band album, Seasons of Trouble. It's a pretty vibey song, man. It's pretty powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jesus Christ, that song is dope. Like, I was playing it yesterday, and my wife, like, ran into the studio, like, yo, what are you listening? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a fucking dope song. Song got my wife hype. It's a powerful ass song. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty powerful. It's a really good song. And I'm thankful that Emily reached out, you know, and allowed me to play this song, you know, gave me the privilege of putting this here and letting this be a part of this podcast. So thank you very much, Emily, because that song is pretty amazing. As I said, the song is called Little Pieces. It's available on SoundCloud, iTunes. The album will be on iTunes. Actually, October 8th. She's dropping the album October 8th, same day as my album, EP, whatever you call it. I don't know if I'm forced to call it an EP because it's 4 songs, but that's just what I'm calling it, an album. But same day that I dropped Still Bitter, Emily is dropping this album here, Seasons of Trouble. Dropping albums the same day. So that's pretty cool. You guys should definitely check out this album on October 8th. Also on October 8th, which is really cool, the Emily Zimmer Band will be playing. Like, they're going to play the full album at Quarters, which is, as I've said, I'm coming for you, Quarters. I'm coming for you, Quarters. I don't think it's too hard to play in Quarters, you know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm saying. What I think it is for me personally is that it's not my genre. It's a rock club, but I fucking rock. You know, that's how I feel. But back to Emily Zimmer's playing Quarters on Friday, October 8th. They're going to play the full album. The show starts at 8 p.m. It's going to feature Alex Smith, then the Robe Electrics at 9 p.m. All right? And then Emily's band will play the entire album at 10 p.m. It's a $5 show, 21 and up, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously to everybody, but 21 and up. There also will be a raffle at the show that benefits the River West Food Pantry, ladies and gentlemen. Tickets are cheap, so and it's going to go to a great cause. You get some prizes, which are like merch packs. You get some CDs, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, you heard that song. It's pretty amazing. It's a good cause there. In the raffle, I would, if I'm in Milwaukee, I would definitely check out the, well, I am in Milwaukee. I will not be at the show, unfortunately. I work Monday through Friday, second shift. You know what I'm saying? So, like, but everybody else should be there. Yeah, I literally will be working when this show is going on. But, yeah, it's pretty dope. Yeah, damn, what? I'm working the day I drop this. I mean, I don't need to be off the day I work and the day I drop a project, honestly, because I think that would drive me crazy. You know what I'm saying? Just sitting there hoping everybody listens to it, but nobody listens. Nobody I know listens, you know what I'm saying? It's usually like people I've never met that reach out. Anywho, check out Quarters, October 8th. You got the Emily Zimmer Band playing at Quarters, October 8th, dropping the album, Seasons of Trouble. As I played for you, Little Pieces is fire. Congrats to Emily on getting your black belt in Taekwondo. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So congrats to you. Everybody should definitely head to Quarters for that show on October 8th, if you can make it. All right. And also, I thought it was pretty silly because, like, as I was listening to the song just now, you know what I'm saying, Little Pieces, I was listening to that, and thinking about how, like, we're dropping the projects on the same day, and I'm like, fuck, I didn't even write in these notes that I just dropped a video. Like, I just dropped another video. So I put out the video for Buzz, which looks, the aesthetic of Buzz for me was that, I don't know if you guys in your health classes, if you ever put on those, like, drunk goggles, and I was like, this is obnoxious. Nothing's ever looked like this. Like, as a child, when they put those fucking drunk goggles on you, I was like, no one has ever seen like this in life. And I doubt this is what alcohol would do to you, and it's never done that to me. I've never been drunk and was just like, holy fuck. Everything's, like, blurred or pigmented, or pigmentation everywhere. So, like, that was the aesthetic of that. That's why it looks that way, but maybe I should have explained it. And I just put out the video for the song Kwame, and people seem to be pretty into the song. I mean, I'm pretty into the song myself. I think it's pretty fire. And, you're going to get the full project everywhere October 8th. But you can get Kwame and Buzzed. You can listen to both of those songs on SoundCloud, or you watch the videos on YouTube where they're available. I produced the whole project, shot those videos. I'm just teaching myself this camera, teaching myself how to use Photoshop and Premiere Pro and After Effects. I'm just trying to learn it all right now in the same way that I took the time to learn to make these beats, how to learn to fucking do this. I was as I said in the beginning, I didn't have the bells and whistles on this my vocal chain. Nigga, I ain't know about vocal chains and just chains in general as well, other than the chains. But I didn't know about chains in general until I learned. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to learn it all as I go. Be my own one-stop shop. Like, literally be my own one-stop shop, because I have the LLC, and I'll be a client through, you know what I'm saying? I'll do business through my business. A literal one-stop shop. That's how it is. So definitely go out there and peep Kwame by Jermaine Event. It's out there everywhere. Shit. Now I'm thinking, like, damn, should I play Kwame? I don't know. Should I play Kwame? I don't know. I ain't played nothing else on here, but I don't know. I'm not trying to play Kwame. Maybe next week. Maybe next week I'll give you guys a little more of the album. Now that I've just broke the seal there with some music on the podcast. We just broke the seal, ladies and gentlemen. And now we're going to open the floodgates. There's a fire starting in... anywho. We're going to... maybe next week I'll give you guys a little bit more. Maybe play the whole friggin' album here, because... who knows? Because the album drops, like, that following Friday. You know what I'm saying? So you'll get a little more of the project next week for sure. Let me try, if I remember. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see. But moving on, you know what I'm saying? As I said, a lot of things happened in the world of combat sports. Some unfortunate news. I was watching. I didn't really know that it was International Fight Week for the UFC and that they were doing the Hall of Fame or whatever. But you got John Jones, who gets inducted to the Hall of Fame for his fight with Alexander Gustafsson, his first fight with Alexander Gustafsson, and Gustafsson, and he said, he was like, he has to start making like headlines for more controversial, more legal controversial things. Like, he specifically said this, for legal things. And like, maybe less than 12 hours later, he was arrested for like domestic battery. And then they're saying like tampering with an automobile, which from what I'm to understand means that like he went into someone's car that he did not own and took something from it or some shit like that, is what that means. Without permission, is what they're saying. So there's not a lot of information on it. I was just looking into it, but it's like, man, if anything, I would say this is the worst so far. I mean, I haven't heard everything, but just by the charges, my nigga, this is the worst thing we've seen from Jon Jones. He just got arrested last year, drunk as fuck behind the wheel. You know what I'm saying? He was drunk as fuck behind the wheel, pled out to that, I think he just paid a fine. He's a millionaire. And now he's got this, man. Like, it's pretty weird, man. We don't know what's going to happen, man. I was watching a video of Daniel Cormier talking about, like, this is just your nature. He's like, I look at this girl who does your PR, and I look her in her eyes, and I know, like, she knows it's only a matter of time before something happens. And he's like, because it's just your nature. It's just who you are. It's only a matter of time before something else happens. And it's like, dude, he was so right. It's just constant. Every time we hear from Jon Jones, it's all that's behind me, all the party, I'm taking it serious. Like, I'm focused on training. Then, boom, Jon Jones is arrested. Boom, Jon Jones is arrested. Boom, Jon Jones is arrested. All right, I'm taking it serious. Less than 12 hours after he said, I'm drinking less, and I'm just focused, I'm just training all the time, so I don't have time to mess up. Less than 12 hours after he said he doesn't have time to mess up, he's arrested for fucking up. It's crazy, man. I need more details. It sounds terrible. What I've heard sounds terrible. So, I don't know, man. This could mean a lot. Aljamain Sterling is out of the rematch with Petr Yan, which is, whatever. He'll just beat you again when he sees you, bruh. Don't be trying to press my boy Aljamain, young man. Aljo will fight you when he feels like fighting you. He's got a lingering issue. He just had surgery on his neck. You know what I'm saying? They said it was a lingering issue from his college wrestling days. And he finally got surgery on it, but he's right. He's not healed up. He's not cleared by the UFC physicians to fight. So they canceled, or they pulled out. Aljo had to pull out of the fight. And the reports are they're looking for a replacement, and most likely it's going to be an interim title fight. You got the front runner, it looks like, is Corey Sandhagen, who was at UFC 266 last night, just in the audience. But I haven't really seen him say too much. But what I have seen Sean O'Malley calling out Petr Yan, saying he wants this fight, repeatedly calling out Petr Yan. He wants that interim title fight against Petr Yan right now. I think that the skill level is so different right now, so vast, between Sean O'Malley and Petr Yan, that Petr Yan would dust this boy up easily. Dust O'Malley up. And Sean O'Malley being a douchebag that fucking hangs out with convicted pedophiles. I would love to see that fight. Please book it. I'm not a Sean O'Malley fan. He's hanging out with Tekashi 6ix9ine, getting his name tattooed on him. Like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? You have a daughter, young man. You have a daughter. I'm calling him young man. That's where I'm at in my life, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in my 30s. I'm in my 30s. I'm 31, but I'm calling him a young man. But Jesus Christ, act like you got some sense. You're hanging out with this convicted pedophile. You got a daughter. So book that fight. I don't know what they're going to do. I think most likely it's going to be Corey Sandhagen. Or maybe Merab. Yeah, Merab. Dude, I fucking love just Matt Serra. I was like, going into the fight, I was like, dude, I wish there was no fans because I'm probably not going to be able to hear Matt Serra go, yeah, Merab. And then I was just like watching a video of them on the bus and Matt Serra's just like, yeah, Merab, for no reason. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's the best part of Merab fights is just Matt Serra. Yeah, Merab. Fucking love Matt Serra. Fucking, super dope. But if I'm the UFC, because that sounds shaky right there, if the UFC, like Merab Dvalishvili just had a fucking great fight. He was almost finished, it looked like, by Marlon Moraes in the first round, and he came back and finished Marlon Moraes. All right? Great comeback. He looked great in that fight. I could see them very well throwing Merab in there, and then if Merab somehow beats Jan, then that forces teammate versus teammate, Aldo versus Merab. That sounds like a great fight, but it's crazy because, well, I think Aljo actually even started training elsewhere, and there was all the beef between. There's a little bit of beef between Aljamain Sterling and Matt Serra, where he was saying he was never going to coach. He's never going to be like corner Aljamain Sterling. I think Aljamain brought out his new coaches to corner him, and Matt Serra took that pretty personally. So I could see that happening. I could see Merab being put in that position to fight Peter Yan. So you could set up a very good storyline of teammate versus teammate, because you can't. They've said repeatedly, we're not going to fight each other. We're teammates. But if Merab becomes the interim champion, how do you stop that? How do you stop them from booking that? You're not going to fight? You don't want to be the champion, Merab? You're going to say, no, I don't want that fight? And if you win that fight, you're going to say, if you win the interim belt, are you going to say, nope, I give it up? I'm not going to fight my teammate. No, it's not going to happen. You guys are going to fight. And that's going to be a pretty fucking dope storyline for the belt, to unify the belt, teammate versus teammate. Beef with Matt Serra and Aljo's new coaches. I think Aljo's training, because even on UFC Embedded, you see Aljo's training at the UFC PI. He's training in Las Vegas. And that was the whole thing, is he's spending more time training in Las Vegas. I think he moved to Las Vegas from New York. So he's more out here than he is with Matt Serra. I could see this fight happening. I think that's the fight. Put Merab in there versus Petr Yan. And let's see if he's got the wrestling. I think he's got the wrestling acumen that could really give Yan some problems. I would love to see that. That's the fight to book. Merab versus Petr Yan. Yo, I just decided, I don't even know if I said it here. Maybe I have, but I'm like done scoring rounds in general. I'm done trying to score fights. It's pretty dumb. Like, I feel like it just upsets people. You know, I've seen people, I've gotten arguments with people about scores. People have tried to come at me about scores, and that's not the thing. But it's just like our scorecards mean nothing. Only scorecards that mean anything at all are the fucking 3 judges sitting there. My scorecard means nothing. To me, like, it would honestly be the equivalent of just pretending you're anybody in any sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me just pretend like I'm the ref, like, from the TV. And, like, oh, that guy grabbed the fence, I'm taking a point. So now, like, in my mind, this fight should be scored a different way because I'm reffing it from my couch. And if that sounds silly because it means nothing, then probably tweeting out your scores when you don't, when I would assume most of the people tweeting out, I'd probably assume like 95% of the people who are tweeting out their scores have no fucking business judging MMA fights. Probably call like a grapple heavy fight a boring fight. If you call a grapple heavy fight a boring fight and you fucking are also shooting out fucking scores for the rounds, like, that's a big problem to me. That tells me you should never be judging fights. And you don't. We don't judge fights. Our bullshit scorecards mean nothing. It would be equivalent to watching a football game and a running back goes for a run, and we're sitting here tweeting out, like, that was 8 yards. Somebody's like, nope, that was 9 yards. But the fucking referees there, I think it was a 7-yard run, and we're just like, what? This ref's drunk. That was 8 yards. No, it was 9. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? The way you're judging this at home plays no role in anything. Means nothing to no one, man. Nothing to no one. So I'm done even doing that. I just want to fucking watch the fights. I know a lot of people like to do it because they've seen other people do it, so they can't really think for themselves, but I'm gonna break the chain, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking that chain mail. You sent me that chain letter, and I didn't send it to anybody else. This is my space, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in my 30s. Fight on this card, on UFC 266, ladies and gentlemen, we had Dan Hooker versus Nasrat Haqparast. And Dan Hooker, man, he showed real improvements in his grappling, had multiple takedowns, man. He looked really good, and I think that was definitely one big aspect that just throwing that in. He was already a lethal striker, but having that threat of a takedown, and then just good on the ground, just having that threat, it adds some new ripples to Dan Hooker, where it was like, oh, maybe we've seen how far Dan Hooker can go. You know, maybe we've already seen that limit with him losing fights to, like, Poirier and getting knocked out by Michael Chandler. We think maybe we've seen the limits, but he's added some new layers to his game, ladies and gentlemen. He calls out Beneil Dariush. All right? He calls out Beneil Dariush, and he says, like, if he ducks him, he's a coward. And I was like, all right, that's pretty tough guy talk. But what I saw just before I was recording that was most interesting was that Dan Hooker said that they were trying to call Tony Ferguson. He was trying to fight Tony Ferguson as well, but Tony Ferguson has not answered the phone. He won't get back to them about fighting Dan Hooker. So that's pretty interesting. Tony Ferguson is refusing. As you guys know, I'm not a Tony Ferguson fan. I thought he was one of the most overrated guys for a long time. He kept winning. Like, he looked great against Donald Cerrone, but who doesn't these days? Maybe Nico Price. Like, who doesn't look great against Donald Cerrone? You know, speaking of Donald Cerrone as a potential next fight for somebody, you had Nick Diaz returning, ladies and gentlemen. Nick Diaz returned versus Robbie Lawler. Lawler kept this pressure on Diaz. Like, he just stayed in his face no matter what. But I just rewatched the fight again, man. It's a phenomenal fight. It only lasted, 3 rounds before the finish there. And I was looking at the stats, ladies and gentlemen, UFC stats, and at the end of the fight, I mean, Robbie Lawler wins the fight. He finishes Nick Diaz in the fucking finishes Nick in the 3rd round. Just maybe 45 seconds into the 1st round, he finishes Nick Diaz with strikes. But when I look at these stats, because I was like, that fight was interesting because Nick outstruck him. Nick was, Robbie stayed in his face, but Nick was just still throwing, crazy strikes. He just kept throwing strikes, but Robbie just kept coming forward. And Robbie, what I think the big problem was in this fight, Nick looked old, all right? He looked old. He looked slow. But he took some pretty nasty body kicks. He took a kick to the liver, and it cut him. That cut him on the side. He's bleeding from his body. Lawler drilled him toes, and after that kick, he was pretty much shelling up, trying to protect the body from that point. So I felt like at that once that kick landed pretty nasty on him, I felt like that was the pretty much end. And Lawler was even in that third round, he was just drilling fucking body, like just bah, 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 just drilling the body, man. He was working that body. But Diaz, man, he gets hit, goes down to a knee, gets hit with an uppercut, and Robbie Lawler walks away, and to let him up. And the ref tells Diaz, stand up or I'm going to stop the fight. He's like, do you want to keep fighting? And Diaz waves it off. No mas, ladies and gentlemen. No mas. Nick Diaz returns after 6 years in a rematch, 15 years in the making, and is stopped in the rematch by Robbie Lawler via retirement. He said no more. He could have stood up and kept fighting. It's interesting because he went down and then he kind of sat up and grabbed his knee. But then and then the ref's like, are you going to stand up? And he just said no. And then after the fight was over, Nick just stood up. And there was no damage to his knee at all. But he immediately grabbed his knee after he went to the ground as if there was an issue with his knee. I don't know. But he said he was done. But I thought it was a great fight regardless. And then I just saw that Jake Shields was saying that, because, leading up to the fight, there was all these interviews with Nick, and it was him saying, I don't even understand how this fight came together, and, all this shit. And everybody's like, man, that's him just basically saying he doesn't want to fight anymore. But Jake Shields is saying that he wanted to fight later in the year. He hadn't been training, and he wouldn't have, a 3-month camp, as most people usually do. They usually train for 3 months for each fight. Instead, he would only have 6 weeks to prepare for this fight. And they, pressured him into fighting on this date rather than the later date that he wanted to. So he only had 6 weeks to prepare, and everybody was saying how bad a shape he looked. And it was dude, they forced him into this date and wouldn't allow him to fight at a later date like he wanted to, is what they're saying apparently. So they're saying he was in worse shape than the pictures we had saw of him a year ago. But then I'm seeing these circumstances, and as Jake was saying, yeah, there's snakes here. They just care about money. They didn't care about his health. They forced him to fight early. So, man, hearing that and then rewatching that fight, I feel like he could come back with a full camp. He could come out there and look pretty good if he wants. Yeah, he quit at the end there, but he was done. He was done. So that was the end of the fight. That's the fight game. That's just how it is. He was done. That's the end of the fight. Let's move on. But that's what I'm saying. So a possible next opponent for Nick Diaz could be Donald Cerrone. I saw Brett Okamoto talking about bringing back Ben Askren to fight Nick. I feel like he would beat the shit out of Ben Askren. I feel like he was beating the shit out of Robbie Lawler, but Robbie just was touching him up on the body. Then I think he broke his nose in the end there. And he was touching that body up, and he broke his nose at the end, and he was done. He was done. So that is what that is. But if he's going to fight again, because he said, if I get my ass kicked, I want to come right back. And if he gets a fucking full, he had that fight in, I feel whatever he lost, it is what it is. But if he gets a fucking full 3-month camp and is in top shape and, comes in there, maybe even fights at 170, he looked huge. He looked huge in there at 185. They were fighting at 185. He looked like a giant compared to Robbie Lawler. He comes back and he does a full camp and fights at 170. I think he can do something, man. Definitely against a Cerrone. You could definitely book that fight. Definitely. So it is what it is with that. Unfortunately, Nick loses in his return, but I'd love to see him fight again. Valentina Shevchenko absolutely dominated Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy was only able to land 11 significant strikes. Was taken down 3 times. Valentina landed 98 significant strikes. So yeah, she just absolutely dominated Lauren Murphy. As I was saying, like, it would be pretty interesting or pretty cool. It would be pretty cool if Lauren Murphy could have won that fight, but the odds were stacked against her for a reason, and she went in there and got her fucking ass beat. And speaking of got her ass beat, well, before I even get to that, I saw people saying, like, a lot of people saying, like, well, the only fight to book now is Valentina versus Amanda Nunes. No, it's not. Actually, the fight to book is Valentina versus the next contender in her weight class. And it's not just like, oh, well, they can't beat her. Like, so? What is your whole point? Like, you just need to see someone beat Amanda Nunes? You just need to see someone beat Valentina? Like, you just need to see this happen? I feel like there's no value in it. You want somebody to move up or move down in weight class, fight, potentially lose, and then, like, what? Their stock goes down, their earning potential possibly goes down. What do they gain by doing any of this? I feel like it makes no sense. You know what makes sense? As Valentina just completed her 6th title defense, have a 7th. Unless Amanda Nunes wants to come down to 125 and try to go for that belt, which I don't think she will or can, honestly. I don't think she can get down to 125. I think that would be too detrimental to who she is to get down to 125. So, I think what's best for Shevchenko is to fight the next contenders in her weight class. There's no value in her moving up to 135 just to fight Amanda Nunes. Like, is she just going to stay at 135 at that point if she wins? Or what are we talking about here? Like, or is she just going to be the queen of 125? Like, does she want to move up regardless of who's there? Regardless of Nunes? I don't think she gives a fuck about Nunes. I don't think that matters to her. I don't think she cares about who's across from there. At this point, she's a lot better fighter than she was definitely in the first fight and definitely in the second fight. In the second fight, she knew she could do something and she was putting it on her. First fight, she was timid, but then she started having some success. Second fight, it was a little more even. She was on her. And I think she's a much better fighter than she was there. Regardless, we don't need to see that fight. We don't need to see that fight. How many times are people calling for fucking Volkanovski to fight Charles Oliveira? I haven't heard one person talk about it. Haven't heard one person talk about Oliveira versus, or actually maybe I've heard one random conversation. I think I heard Oliveira talking about fighting Kamaru Usman, which I think that would be pretty interesting. But you hear the fighters, I don't know, man. It's just weird. It's just weird that they're just like, well, they're the 2 best women, so now they have to fight each other. Like, why? At different weight classes? Why do they have to fight each other for nobody's benefit? It does nothing for you, does nothing for me. It does nothing for anybody. They don't need to fight. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it, honestly. I think Shevchenko should just keep fighting the contenders that come in her weight class, because they're going to keep coming. People are still going to keep coming and trying to fight Valentina. She should successfully get as many title defenses and retire as the greatest fighter of all time. That's what I think. But in the main event, you had Oleksander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega. Now, my prediction was that Ortega would get his fucking ass beat, because I was saying that Zombie fought the kind of fight where it made fucking casuals think, oh, Ortega's amazing now. He's so good now. And it's like, no, he's not. He's the same fighter that got dusted up by Max Holloway. But Korean Zombie fought the kind of style that made him look good. So Oleksander fucking just dominates this dude. And the only real chance that Ortega got, he attempted like 2 submissions in the second round. He got a guillotine pretty deep on Volkanovski, but Volkanovski was able to just escape it. And then he got a triangle on Volkanovski, but Volk was able to just escape it, dude. He's just got something in him, and he escapes and just starts the ground and pound on Ortega to the point where his corner came in. He couldn't stand up, right? And they should have stopped the fight because he couldn't stand up. And his corner comes and picks him up off the ground and puts him in his chair. That's against the rules, but the ref Herb Dean just let it happen, right? Just let it happen. Then, this is at the end of the third round. Ortega's so fucked up, I'm telling you, he couldn't stand up on his own. But now he's standing, they got him standing. He's pretty messed up. And his eye is starting to swell. Looks pretty bad. And they bring in the doctor. And then Herb the doctor's about to stop this fight. Herb steps in and was like, wait, can you see? Can you see how many fingers am I holding up? And Brian is like, he was like, can you see? And I'm pretty sure he was like, I think I can. Pretty sure I heard Ortega say, I think I can. Like, he's answering these questions all wrong. Like, the responses that he's giving the ref should stop the fight. But he let him fucking he gave him like a minute to rest is what they were saying. And he's like, how many fingers am I holding up? And like, Ortega would have to like turn to look. And he's like, wait, no, don't turn your head. How many fingers am I holding up? And it was like, dude, like, it sounds like he can't see. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he said he can't see, and then when you're asking how many fingers am I holding up, he can't tell you. He can't tell you. So it seemed like he couldn't see there, but they let the fight go on. And Volk just kept beating him up, man. He's just fainting. He's doing that shit that they do at CKB, that they're so good at City Kickboxing. He and Israel Adesanya, they're just so good at it. So is Dan Hooker with the fainting. They're just really good strikers, man. And he just smothered him. He was all over him. Even in the 5th round, after he dominated him for 4 rounds straight, he was still coming at him, trying to fight him. Like, it was pretty great. It was a pretty great fight for Volkanovski. It was a pretty bad fight for Ortega. He got dusted up. Got dusted up pretty badly. And that's what I thought was going to happen. And it is what happened. So it's back to the drawing board for the very overrated Brian Ortega. Because I think the same thing's going to happen. I think he's exposed now, man. He's just not that good. But you know who's really good? Oleksander the Great Volkanovski. He's really, really good. Next week, we got UFC Vegas 38. Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker. That is going to be a great fight, ladies and gentlemen. I do not see that fight going the distance. I would be shocked if that fight went the distance. And usually, when you think, oh, there's no way this fight goes the distance, those are the fights that go the distance. So, hopefully it doesn't. This fight, like, on paper, I see fireworks. Johnny Walker, very flashy. Thiago Santos, very powerful, very, he's just a beast, man. He's just a beast, but I haven't liked what I've seen from Santos recently. So I'm going to go with Johnny Walker in this fight. He's really exciting. He's going to be jumping all over the place with like flying knees, all kinds of shit. But then you got just like the raw power of Santos. But, you know, you don't really know like if his movement is going to be what it used to be after he had those surgeries. He tore like both his ACLs when he fought John Jones, or something like that. He had 2 really bad tears and was out for over a year after surgeries on that. So, you know, you just don't know. You just don't know what you're going to get from Santos now. So I'm going to have to go Walker there. And I think flying under the radar next week is Kevin Holland's returning to fight Kyle Dawkins in the co-main event. And I think I think Kevin Holland's going to get back into the win column next week, Saturday. But there's like pretty much no buzz for this fight. You think like where Kevin Holland was a few months ago, they were doing all these promos for him. They were seeing this guy as the next star, and then loss after loss, and there's just no buzz for this Kevin Holland fight. Some fights I'm interested in on this card as well. You got Aspen Ladd versus Macy Chiasson. I think that's going to be a real good fight. Got Antonina Shevchenko coming in versus Casey Pacey O'Neal. That's going to be a real good fight. Antonina Shevchenko, I just never know what I'm going to get from her. She comes out and looks fantastic like 2 fights ago. Then last fight was just getting beat up in the grappling by, who was it? I don't know. It was one of those fighters. I never know what I'm going to get from her. And Pacey O'Neal is going to put that pace on her. So that's going to be a good fight. You got Betch Correia fighting her retirement fight against Carol Rosa. So that's a fight of note. I think there were some more interesting fights on that card. Let's take a quick gander. I like Alexander Hernandez versus Mike Breeden. I don't know who Mike Breeden is, but Alexander Hernandez is fighting. And Joe Selecki taking on Jarrett Gordon. That's going to be a real good fight there, too, happening next week. So it's a pretty good card next week. It's pretty good fights, but I don't need to go over all of them. But what I will go over is if you want to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You can follow my personal account at My Name's Jermaine. You can email this podcast at Babylon5Podcast@gmail.com. You can listen to this podcast on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, pretty much anywhere podcasts stream. And if you guys are on Xbox, go ahead and add me. My gamer tag is SauceBoss414. If you guys are on Twitch, add me at twitch.tv/Babylon5. If you guys want to cop that merch like you do, I know you do, go to teespring.com/stores/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, be my patrons. Go to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod. And just for $1, you guys can be patrons. To get out of here, I want to say once again, thank you, Emily Zimmer, for sending that amazing song, Little Pieces. It's just a great song. Super vibey. Great vibes to you on that show. Hope you kill it. And hope everybody loves that album and mine. But yeah, I hope you guys, as I say, are taking care of yourselves and each other. And I'll see you when I see you. I'll holla.